Today, I'm making a new bench.
The old bench was actually just a piece of plywood on some sawhorses. Sawhorses were plastic and cheap. Plywood was wood and pretty expensive.
One thing I notice on this bench is when I'm planing, doing a lot of hand planing, it just scoots on me. And you know what? I'm kind of sick and tired of that. So instead of just dealing with it and working with this bench, I'm just going to make a new one. Now we're not going to go all crazy with this and do like a walnut top or oak beams or anything like that. I'm just going to use what I have in the shop, just make something that works. But for right now, this bench has pissed me off, so I still need to use that to make the new bench. So like I said, we're going to be using the wood that I have in the shop, and we have quite the assortment. Some nice 2x4s, some nice like these weird 3x4s or something. I don't know what that's used for, maybe like fencing or something. I don't know. If you know, let me know in the comments. We also have some, glued together plywood. That's probably going to be some good weight. But yeah, we also have drywall, which of course we are not going to be using. So we'll just get on with this Frankenstein build, and it won't be the best, but it'll be something.
All right, that's enough of the banjo montage. So right here, I'm just laying out the wood. It's a little pretty, but just making sure that I have roughly the right amount of lumber for this simple bench. I still don't exactly know what these pieces are used for in like the construction world. I don't come from that world, so if you guys do know, please let me know in the comments below. All right, and this just shows that marking your lines with a knife is the best way to go, the only way to go. I know people are going to say, oh, but they use pencils. No, just please trust me on this one, guys. And now time for some ASMR of my favorite shop tools. If that doesn't get you excited, I don't know what will. So right here, I know the frame is all off, but I am cutting those marked lines, just making sure that all the legs are the same height. I am doing this on a bandsaw just because it's so quick and easy. Another tidbit of information is just when you're doing these projects, if you don't have plans, make sure to lay it out. That way you know what's going to happen and you know the dimensions are at least somewhat close to what you want them to be. For this table, having all 4 legs might be an overstretch because, they aren't being held up by anything, but it is just good to visualize what you're actually doing. And that's just what happens when you don't secure down your wood. I'm sure there's a joke somewhere in there. But we're going to do some half-lap joints for the length of the wood, or for these stretchers, if that's what you can call them. And so right now, I'm just making sure that my 2x4s are the length of the bench. If they're a little bigger, who cares really? I might hit a shin or two, but it is what it is. Projects, you want to double check that your measurements are all correct, or at least close to correct. And of course, marking your legs is going to be one of the most important things. So I marked all of these with a B, and hopefully that'll help me in the future keep them all straight and accounted for. This is of course a lazy project with no plans, so maybe that is just a little bit of foreshadowing in the future, but always measure twice, cut once. As with most people, I find myself in the garage doing woodworking, and it's really just a release of creativity. Now, in this project, you won't see much of it, but I'm hoping that this project leads to more creativity in the future, where I have a sturdy bench that I can do all my work that I want to do on. God, I love that sound. Just the vacuum whirling up is like, I don't know, it's almost like Dragon Ball Z is like a Kamehameha like build up. It just gets you going. Anyway, so right here, I'm just using the table saw. I made it to the width of the 2x4 just so I could create those half-lap joints in the 3x4s or whatever they are. Of course, You always need to have your hammer in the shop, and that's what I'm doing with these little excess pieces, just beating the crap out of them until they basically just break away. One part of the table build that I didn't think I'd expect to like as much as I did was just creating these legs. And of course this stretcher has to be on the downside of the board just because there were nails already in this wood. Like I said, I got these off of Facebook Marketplace, so you know, who knows what they were used for. Tidbit, make sure your shop is clean. And by clean, I mean just blow all the crap on your table saw onto the ground where you have to sweep it up later. But that is woodworking. It's a constant mess, and you know, you can run your vacuums all you want, but there will be dust. Or at least there's dust for me. I haven't solved that issue yet. Of course, the next step is to finish up these half-lap joints by cutting off all these ridges left by the table saw and the hammering, if you will. Now, if you want to make really nice half-lap joints, take your time on the chiseling or use a box plane or just some sort of hand plane to make sure that the underside of the joint is flat. There were quite a bit of gaps in these joints later on, but it is what it is. The table will be a table. Thumbs up all around. Sometimes I worry about how hard I hit the wood with the mallet, but at the end of the day, what doesn't break you just makes you stronger, right? At least I hope so.
Now, if you guys thought that my bench wasn't level, well, you might be right. You're looking a little sprawled out, and just to show it a little more, I have a nice little level. We are quite off a level, but we'll get there. We will get there. Oh boy. Remember how I drew those B's for the base? Well, those are 2 on the base. But then we go over here, and the B's on the other side. That's all right.
Couldn't say it better myself. This project is filled with mistakes, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. It will be a table. It will hold my woodworking creations, at least the smaller projects. And hopefully it won't move as much because it will be a little bit heavier than just a piece of plywood on a couple plastic sawhorses. Right here, I'm just making sure, lining up the top stretcher with the legs. I did overhang it from the top of the leg just in case the cuts on these 3x4s weren't perfectly flat, because it is the bandsaw. I'm not trying to kid myself. I know those cuts aren't going to be as flat as they needed to be. But overhanging it a little bit, I'm hoping that the 2x4s are level, and with that, I will have a more level bench. This is me making those half-lap joints over the table saw. Of course, it is just repeated cuts to make small enough things to break. The breaking of these ones will actually be on my TikTok. Just like all the information in this video, which isn't too much, you can find my TikTok handle in the description. It is JimbobTV. Over there, I make woodworking TikToks that are, you know, hopefully satisfying. Hopefully help you pass the time by. You know, great ones to watch while on the porcelain throne or other places likewise. Now that I'm editing this, I'm trying to think of other places that are like a porcelain throne. I can't really think of any. I guess you could call your couch a fabric throne, but that doesn't have the same type of ring to it. So if you guys have any ideas of what else is like a porcelain throne, let me know in the comments. Here I am doing a dry fit of the table. Thumbs up all around, of course. Here, it's not my proudest moment, but I have a giant tub of Type Bond 3 wood glue that is somewhat old, but it has outlasted my smaller container that I use for containing my wood glue, so it is what I use now. I take a little offcut of wood and dip it straight into the wood glue and use that to kind of dab around the project. It isn't a long-term solution, and it is quite trashy, but it is what it is. I mean, in a way, it's kind of the spirit of woodworking, just to find solutions to your problems. You know, there's no project that has no issues in it. That's what I love about woodworking. You gotta constantly think of how you're going to solve your most previous mistake. Kind of like right there, where I have nails in that 3x4 piece of material, and so instead of scratching my bandsaw table, I flip it and have to do a blind cut where I have to make multiple passes to make it flush with the 3x4 material. And this is me doing the final glue up of the long stretchers. Of course, with the Type Bond 3 dispersion apparatus of offcut wood into the jug. I used a lot of glue here, mainly because there were a lot of gaps in the half lap joints. That, of course, was not planned, but it is what it is. I'm not too concerned about it. I have screws in there. It'll be fine. Right here, I have those extra pieces of plywood just to weigh down the table a little bit more and to give it a little bit more height. It was a little low. This all will be covered by the sacrificial top of a 1/4 inch plywood. Here I'm just, using some brad nails to hold it down. And this is the final project, the final rendition of the most beautiful Frankenstein table of offcut pieces of wood that I got off of Facebook Marketplace. It is glorious. It is sturdy. It is heavy. There's 2 extra long pieces of 2x4 material on the ends, which I will use as clamp holders, maybe. It's good enough. This will work. It is way better than the sawhorse table, and I am proud of this Frankenstein build.
All right, guys. Well, that is the finished project of the worst bench ever, but way better than my last one. Like, if I'm really going at it with the hand plane, it shouldn't move too much. If it does, I'll just add weight to it. I have nice little clamp spots that I didn't really intend to build, but they're there. But yeah, overall, super easy. Took half a day. Pretty much just gonna be good enough for what I needed. And that's all that I can ask for. Sometimes it's not about having the best thing that you possibly can have. It's about wanting what you need. Anyway, that's it for me. So, till next time, I'll catch y'all later. Jim Bob out. This bench is pissing me off, so... Ouchie. Ouchie, 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 ouchie. I mean, it is pretty dang heavy.